Hi, friends. I have quite corny name for my talk today. It's called 50 Shades of Decentralization, but it expresses very well, I think, what I want to be talking about. Basically, I want to dissect this topic once in a while and stop this kind of holy war between like things being centralized or decentralized, because there's always like a certain scale in this particular topic, which is not easy. So today I want to also focus more on the technical centralization or decentralization, and to give some case studies of different services and platforms that are on different scale from like completely centralized to completely decentralized. So I came from the same city as the previous speaker, Jan. We're from Singapore. I don't know how program managers managed to put two guys from Singapore in the same kind of time slot, but pretty cool. And we're also hiring for DevOps. So if you're looking for a cool DevOps role, we are hiring all the time. So what we do, we connect people, in particular developers, with decentralized infrastructure. So we're powering a lot of applications in the space. We have some notable names as customers. Some of them are also here in this room. A part of our services that we provide are similar to Pocket, so we provide node APIs, but it's much more. We provide like dedicated nodes for certain protocols, and like we do indexing service, we do customized setups, we do like file storage now, and so on and so forth. So we are trying to be the connecting layer between developers who are building in Web3 and all the Web3 infrastructure that is for the disposal of these developers. So what's decentralization? Usually this topic is discussed within the like public sector space. So there is a cool research by an organization called World Bank from I think 2013. So it's pretty old. It's like 10 years old. So when they talk about decentralization, they say they don't say like a particular statement about decentralization. What they say is like it's a variety of concepts which must be carefully analyzed, right? And like in general, what's decentralization? Transfer of authority and responsibility from like one central authority to number of intermediaries, local governments, like quasi-independent organizations, and they like say it again. It's complex, multifaceted concept, right? So that kind of gives you an idea, like that it cannot be just like, okay, yes, it's decentralized, or no, it's not decentralized, right? So moving forward in the public sector space, there are also different types of decentralization, right? So it's not just one, okay, it's decentralized governance or not decentralized governance, right? So there are different types, like political decentralizations, like let's give citizens more decision-making power. Also, let's transfer responsibilities for certain things, like planning, financing, management for different like functions from centers to regions. Fiscal decentralization, okay, let's have these like regions being able to like finance themselves and like being able to have revenue streams themselves, right? There's market decentralization. Let's give opportunity for like private sector to play part of this like whole system and let them take charge through like providing some better services that government can provide, right? And one important quote from this paper also is that the appropriate balance of decentralization is essential to the effective and efficient functioning of the government, right? Not all the functions can or should be financed and managed in a decentralized fashion. I think it's very important and very much applies to what we're building here. So let's look at this topic in more like a scale. Okay, some things should be decentralized, some things should not be decentralized. And I want to map the same kind of approach to like now Web3 platforms, and I'm trying to follow the same kind of train of thought. And I built a slide, piggybacking on the previous slide, basically talking about different types of decentralization in Web3 platforms, right? So let's say, what do we have in Web3 platforms? We have governance decentralization. Let's give like employees of the company or like ecosystem participants power in public decision-making and management of certain things, right? That's what we can like see in DAOs, for instance, right? And other structures. Technology decentralization. Let's transfer responsibility for operating some like platform services to the ecosystem participants, and let's apply consensus on top of it, so it's all working nicely. Fiscal decentralization, same thing. Like, how do we ensure like incentives being aligned across all the ecosystem participants, right? Or like market decentralization. Let's let market decide what service providers are better, right? So let there be competition for certain like services, right? Let the market decide. And the quote which we saw on the previous slide is exactly the same in my opinion. So like appropriate balance of centralization is essential for the effective, efficient functioning of the Web3 platform. All right. So now I'm not a big expert in like tokenomics and DAOs and all that kind of stuff, but I know a little bit about the tech. So I want to talk about the technological decentralization here and dissect it in a little bit more detail. So I built this like stack, which is not whatsoever like OSI model, real like compatible stack. It's more about like, okay, let's talk about blockchain API infrastructure. Let's talk about blockchain API stack, right? So what do we have here? On the like the most low level, we have compute and storage, like what kind of hardware, operating systems, containers, what kind of hosting is like AWS, is it cloud, is it like some co-location, do you like host stuff on your own like box at home, right? On top of that, there are like internet protocols that have been built like for a long time already, like TCP/IP, DNS, and a bunch of others. On top of that, you have like blockchain protocols, which is like lib, P2P, Tendermint, and other things that are used in like blockchain nodes. On top of that, you have like blockchain node software, which can be, depending on the protocol, different. Like I took some examples from Ethereum, for instance. You have like a few blockchain clients like Geth, Aragon, Nethermind. On top of that, you have middleware, like caching, reverse proxying, load balancing, all this kind of stuff. On top of that, you have service gateways. So like how do like developers or how do people access this APIs, all these like nodes that are running on this hardware and on this like cloud services or on self-hosted services, right? So do you access it in like edge manner? So do you access like particular node in particular region? Like where is this gateway hosted? Is it hosted in the same region? Is it hosted in another region? Do you have like a global gateway that will be giving you some like geo balancing and all this kind of stuff? And then in the end, you have application layer. So there are like SDKs, libraries that you usually use to develop applications on blockchain, as well as standard like protocols that you use on application level, like HTTP, JSON RPC, WebSocket, and all that, right? So this is like standardized stack for any like blockchain API service. Now what I want to do, I want to give a bunch of case studies and try to understand like more in details like how every of this like provider works and like what's the difference in like centralization of each of these layers, right? So let's start with the most notorious one called Infuria. You all know Infuria. So let's dissect it in more details and understand like what's good, what's bad, and like what could be improved, right? So let's start with compute and storage. So we all know, most of us know that like Infuria is running their nodes on AWS, more or less like in one region, like US East, right? So it's pretty bad, right? So if we look at this from decentralization perspective, one provider, one region, not great. If you look at like internet protocols, blockchain protocols, application level, they will be always more or less green because they're all more or less decentralized, like TCP/IP, DNS were designed to be decentralized, like all the blockchain protocols, same. Application level, you have many SDKs, you have many libraries, you have like all kind of stuff to like to get access to your blockchain nodes. Now blockchain nodes. If you look at this, like you will see that like Infuria is probably using like one or maybe two clients. Like okay, it's like probably Geth, and still they are running all these nodes themselves. They are running all these nodes in like the same kind of cloud, same kind of region. So it doesn't sound like very decentralized, right, or distributed. Middleware. Let's see, like for Infuria, we all know they have like decomposed stacks, so they have a lot of caching mechanisms, which are not basically giving you direct access to blockchain nodes, and it's not open source. So you basically have a lot of stuff which is not open source, which is not available to anybody, and which sounds like pretty much centralized too. Service gateways, as soon as all the stuff is running on AWS in the same region, it's not very decentralized because it's like if when US East is down and Infuria is down, and we've seen it a few times already, which is far from being decentralized, right? Let's take a second example. Chainstack is the company that I'm working for. Let's see how decentralized Chainstack is, right? Let's start with the bottom one, compute and storage. So we run our services in like 5 different cloud providers. We are onboarding like roughly like 1 provider per quarter or something. Like we are doing more bare metal stuff now, for instance. So it's relatively decentralized. Is it all decentralized? Of course not, because they're just like, okay, 5 or 7 providers. That's not a lot. It's not like hundreds or even tens. Let's look at blockchain nodes. We run a bunch of clients for our like 18 protocols that we support. So for instance, for Ethereum, we can run like Geth or Aragon or Nethermind. You can choose, like if you deploy a node, you can select which node you want. So it's relatively decentralized. And again, it's running in different like clouds. So let's say if AWS decides to ban like Ethereum nodes from running like what Hetzner did, we're gonna run all this stuff in like different cloud provider. So it's like reasonably decentralized, not so much. It's like how many people do we have like who are running these blockchain nodes? How many DevOps engineers we have? Probably like 10. So it's not super decentralized. We have like choice of clients, we have choice of clouds, choice of regions. Like we have 9 regions, relatively decentralized, but not that much, right? So middleware, we don't have any like custom caching. We use pretty standard tools like Nginx and a bunch of other like tools that are open source. Even though we don't like show everybody like all this kind of stuff in open source, you cannot go to like Chainstack GitHub and see, okay, all these layers in open source. So even though we're using a lot of open source stuff, it's not like we don't have a like documentation about this and like clear indication what we're using and how we're using to prove people that, okay, everything is open source and everybody can repeat that. So it's like relatively good, but not decentralized anyhow, because it's like, okay, it's all proprietary, right? Service gateways, same as compute and storage. It's pretty decentralized because it's like 9 regions, 5 different cloud providers, so pretty good. So you can connect to any of those. So it's like if US East is down, you can connect to any other location that we provide. So it's pretty good, but not decentralized because it's not like tens of different regions and clouds, right? Or just like hosting facilities. So last but not least, let's dissect like Pocket Network in terms of decentralization. Let's look at it. So compute and storage, it's pretty sick because it's like there are a lot of node runners like for Pocket. There are a lot of node runners like for relay chains, right? So it's pretty good. So there are like people who are running like nodes at home. There are a lot of people who are running nodes in like clouds, in like bare metal setup, everything. So it's pretty good, I would say. It's very, very decentralized from this perspective. Relay nodes, I would say it's way better decentralized than, let's say, Infura or Chainstack. I still keep it orange because I think that, like compared to the number of like Pocket nodes, for instance, like number of relay nodes is much lower. So there's a lot of reuse of Pocket relay nodes from the Pocket nodes. So let's say I think that the ratio is not good enough, and it's still there are a lot of relay nodes that are being supplied for like Pocket nodes, which are the same. So I think we can do better here, for instance, in terms of decentralization, but it's definitely way better than Infura and Chainstack in this sense, right? Middleware. In fact, it's not better than anybody else because it's all like proprietary at the moment, so you cannot like download like Pocket gateway thing and like get access directly to the Pocket network or like through the SDK. So it's still kind of secret knowledge. So nobody knows like how this works. So middleware is, I think it's same as other vendors and other players in the market because it's still not like available to everybody, right? Service gateways, still the same. It's like, okay, if you access Pocket Portal, you access centralized thing, and which is basically being run by Pocket. So at the moment, there is no decentralization there whatsoever. So in the same way, like Chainstack, for instance, it's like, it's quite distributed. So there are gateways running in like different locations. I know that they are all running in AWS, for instance, which is not great, I mean, to be clear. So if AWS decides to ban Pocket, you're all fucked, basically. So there's no Pocket anymore, so it's like, okay. So again, room for improvement here, clearly. So there are certain improvements, like with compute and storage, like blockchain nodes. The rest is kind of sucks still. So we still have to improve a lot of stuff here if we really want to state that, okay, this thing is decentralized, right? So that's all, I think, for today. What I also wanted to add on top of that is that there are also all sorts of like considerations when we're talking like blockchain APIs that are very important in the end for the end users. Like if we're looking for like product market fit for any given thing, we also need to think about other stuff, right? So like what kind of other like value-added tools and services you can provide to your customer, right? So like do you provide like data APIs? Do you provide like storage? Do you provide like customization of the nodes? Do you provide like, I don't know, subnet hosting for Avalanche? Do you provide this and that? So there's a lot of stuff which goes around like just pure APIs and pure API play. Customization is very important. Like from our experience, there's a lot of like high value customers that really want to like customize this thing and that thing, and like they want to put this custom config here and this custom config there, which again, it's very hard to do when you like run a protocol and everything is very much standardized, right? What about customer support? If your thing is down, like who you gonna call? Are you gonna call Vitalik or like Michael in this case, right? So no, probably he doesn't give a fuck like when things are down. So where's customer support, right? So it's very important. People like to talk to people inevitably. So I mean, this is kind of thing that is important, I think also. Like how flexible is your architecture to onboard new types of services? Okay, you like run node APIs, but what about like IPFS? Like can you run IPFS nodes on this protocol? It's very important because in the end, in the long run, you want to provide different kind of services that are useful for developers, right? And that's kind of the play in the infrastructure space. Is there any SLA for services? Like, can you actually be like credited in like Pocket tokens if Pocket network is down or something like that? Probably not, right? So like, is there any guarantees for this? Yes or no? It's kind of open question, right? So also very important for high value customers, for instance, and like for those guys who are running like a lot of stuff in production, they want to be sure that this thing is reliable. They want to have some guarantees. They want to have some like credit system for in case if your infrastructure goes down, right? Like what are the ways to pay for the services? Like can you pay with crypto? Can you pay with just your native token? Can you pay with like stable coins? Can you pay with credit card? Can you pay with bank, like invoice, et cetera, et cetera? Again, if you want to cover all of the market, you need to be flexible in the ways like how people can pay for the services, and different people have different preferences on that as well. So we use Coinbase Commerce for our like crypto payment integration, for instance, and recently Coinbase Commerce added Dogecoin payments integration. And just for the sake of like fun, we just enabled Dogecoin integration in our payment gateway as well. And because we haven't thought that people would pay with Dogecoin, and they did basically. So we had a lot of people paying in Dogecoin, which is kind of surprising. But still, there's a lot of flexibility that you need to add in the long run if you want to run like an infra play. So there's a lot of other considerations to be taken if you want to deal with different type of customers in different industries with different requests. That's all. I will be very happy to answer any questions. Hopefully we tackled a little bit the decentralization topic, and we can chat more about it. Obviously, it's very controversial. I didn't plan to cover all of it, but it's like give you some idea to. No, can we do questions? Or no? Like one. Yeah.
Hey, Gene, it's Jeff from Curve Grid. Thanks for the presentation. Really, really interesting. So I'm interested to know, because Infuria has recently announced their decentralized offering, and I'm curious to know, first of all, how you think that might stack up, and then second of all, is that something that Chainstack is thinking about doing as well?
So on the Infuria side, I cannot really comment because there was like an announcement, so there was no details. So it's like, I can do the same like tomorrow. I can paste them. My Chainstack will decentralize the whole shit of like infrastructure. And, like, it will be the same thing. I tried to figure it out, but there's zero details. So cannot comment on that because I have no details. On Chainstack, well, honestly, our like strength is in like building a scalable business model around like infrastructure, and like we are not into protocol stuff, honestly. So I will not pretend that I'm a huge like crypto economic kind of guy. So we have Pocket for this, and we love to work with Pocket. We've been engaged with this like community for last like 3 years, and we love to like participate and like to input like challenging questions and like help them to grow, etc. So at the moment we don't play to decentralized Chainstack. We plan to build scalable business models, as well as observe as what's going on in the industry, participate, run nodes for Pocket, run nodes for Infura decentralized protocol, whatsoever it's called, and just help people to build reasonable businesses and infrastructure.